Okay, we get questions all the time about how rural it is here for people who work remote, yet still need to travel occasionally for work. I mean, Central Oregon is an incredible place to live if you don't have to be near any major metropolitan city. So I would guess from watching too many rom-coms about fashion designers that if I wanted to be some sort of fashion designer, I would have to live near New York or Paris or something like that. That's just not something you're going to be able to do here. However, we do have a cheat code for those of you who do need to travel easily and conveniently for work. And that cheat code is called Roberts Field, aka the Redmond Airport, or also known as RDM. So today we're going to give you the full breakdown on our local airport. Some history, what the experience is actually like coming and going, some pros and some cons, the major hubs that it flies to, and then of course, if you stick around to the very end, we're going to talk a little bit about what the future of the Redmond Airport could look like. So hit that subscribe button on the way in, because here on this channel we talk about all things from recreation to real estate. Welcome, let's get after it. Now Redmond, despite not being a very large community and not being very old, I mean it was only established in 1910, just 10 years later had built their first airport in 1920. Now just for a sec, close your eyes and help me out with something. Do you know what year the Wright brothers first took flight? 1903? Yes, right. Okay, Smarty Pants, but do you know when the first commercial passenger flight happened? Just 11 years later. That's it, in 1914. That's moving pretty fast. I mean, it must have only been a few miles, right? Can you just take me up in the air and then back down? Yeah, right? No, it was 23 miles. From St. Petersburg, Florida to Tampa, Florida. That's not nothing, that's kind of wild. Just 11 years later after first actually officially flying. Whew. Okay, so in 1940, Roberts Field began actually doing commercial passenger flights. I mean, heck, I guess everyone else was doing it, right? Here's another really fascinating stat. The number of airline passengers increased significantly throughout the 1930s, from carrying only 6,000 passengers in 1929 to over 450,000 passengers in 1934. This is nationally, this is not just Redmond. And then to 1.2 million passengers by 1938. That's just 10 years of growth. And that was back 100 years ago. No wonder back in the 90s we all thought that we'd be driving flying cars by now, right? Then back in World War II, the Air Force actually used Roberts Field as a bomber base. That's wild too. Then when the war ended, they sold the airport back to the city of Redmond for $1. Talk about a deal of the week. So now the original passenger terminal that was built back in the 1950s was replaced in 1981 by a 6,000 square foot terminal. Then in 1992, the terminal was expanded again, this time to about 23,000 square feet, and then again it was expanded in 2009 to what we have today. What we have today is the absolute most charming little airport that is super easy to navigate, that services 30 flights a day out to various other hubs across the western United States. I'm not kidding you, it is genuinely the easiest airport to get in and out of. It's small enough that you can't really get lost. There's only a handful of ticket counters. There's one security checkpoint that's easy breezy. There's almost never much of a line to even get in there, whether you're TSA or not TSA approved, you know? And then there's just a couple of gates as well. And then when you're inbound, when you're coming back home, or when you're just coming from, wherever you're out there watching this from living now and you're coming to visit, there's only 2 baggage carousels. So it's like really easy. So on the pro side, super convenient. You don't need to arrive 2 full hours ahead of your flight. In fact, depending on how risky you want to be, you can arrive pretty close to your flight. There's a gift shop, a bar, lounge. And another pro is if you were going to the airport in any other city, depending on where you live, like here in Bend, Redmond, it's a 20-minute drive and you're like there and in and done. I don't care where you live in Portland, you still have to leave 20 to 40 minutes ahead to get there. And then you have to get there an hour and a half to 2 hours ahead of your flight, right? It was the same when I lived in Nashville. Like you could live right next to the airport, but you gotta get out, you gotta go around the freeway, you gotta go to the next exit, come back, and whatever. Like you still have to leave plenty early to get to the airport. And then of course you gotta get there early to do all of the things you have to do at the airport. And Redmond is just so easy. I can't even express how easy it is to you if you don't already know. So let me touch a bit on the planes and the destinations for a minute, okay? Back in the early 2000s, the Redmond airport was a little bit smaller and it was just a bunch of puddle jumper planes, really pretty tiny planes. I mean, you know, like one seat on one side of the aisle and only two on the other side. And a lot of them were also prop planes. They really only flew to Portland, Seattle, LAX, and maybe a handful of a few others. Can you remember the last time you've been in a prop plane? Have you ever been in a prop plane? All the flights out of here used to be propeller planes. It was kind of crazy, and eventually that changed. Back there was prop planes all the way up until 2022. Now, however, we are all finally onto jets. Future has spoken, and the size of the jets is also starting to increase. A lot of times back in the day, they were, you know, 2 seats on each side of the aisleway. Now there are planes that are a little bit bigger taking off out of Roberts Field that have 3 seats on each side of the aisleway. More of a kind of a normal size plane. Okay, let's get to the cities that we actually fly to. I've got a list here. This is current, as in April of 2025. Burbank, Dallas, that's a long ways away. Denver, it's another one that's out there. Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Palm Springs, Phoenix, Portland, Santa Rosa, Salt Lake, San Diego, San Francisco, and Seattle. That's not just a tiny little regional airport. That's a legitimate way to get around the country. I used to travel back and forth to Tennessee when I was younger, much younger, in college. And I would have to drive to Portland, over the pass to Portland to catch a flight back east. Honestly, I cannot remember the last time I've had to go to Portland to catch a flight in or out of the area. I haven't been to the Portland airport in probably 12 years, which is a shame because I hear they actually have done a massive remodel on the lobby there, and it's actually one of the prettiest airports in the country right now, if I'm not mistaken. But hang on, before we get to the future look of this airport we're talking about, I should probably mention some of the cons, because it's not perfect, right? One of the cons is that you typically have to get a really early start. Obviously, it's because most of the time, unless you're going to one of the destination cities that I just mentioned, you're usually gonna connect somewhere. There's usually gonna be some sort of connection, and you know, connections take time, and if you're heading east at all, you're losing time heading east, right? So if you're losing time, you gotta get an early start, you're making connections. Usually you have to get a really early start on your travel day. Another major con is that there are no sky bridges. You know, the little ramp that you walk, you stay indoors from the gate indoors all the way onto the plane. We don't have those. So what that means is that you have to actually walk outside in the elements to get on either some sort of a staircase or a ramp that takes you up into the airplane. Now the ramp isn't bad when it's 60 or 70 degrees outside. It's kind of nice. However, when it's winter, yeah, it's not fun. And it's not fun when it's like 95 degrees out in the middle of July either. It's hot. So pack your carry-on bag accordingly. Make sure there's room to put your coat in or take your coat out. That's a pro tip. Another con, the parking. The daily rate's kind of spendy. It's $2 an hour for a maximum 24-hour bill there. And then the long-term parking has also gone up quite a bit recently. It's now $15 per day. So if you're gonna be gone for a week, it's best to either get a ride or use some sort of a ride share platform, Uber, Lyft, catch a cab, something like that. The good news is we are not so rural here in Central Oregon that we don't not have Uber and Lyft and stuff like that. So either get a ride, call an Uber, something like that, because parking, it's kind of spendy. All right, hey, if you stuck around long enough to hear me bore you about the Redmond Airport, you probably want to know more about the future expansion of the airport. Great, congratulations, you made it. Now, first real quick, I do have to tell you a little bit about us. You see, if you or somebody you know is looking to buy or sell real estate here in Central Oregon, my team and I would love to be your local real estate resource of choice. You can reach out to us at krommrealestate.com, and we can't wait to hear from you. Okay, because of the continuing growth of the area, the Redmond Airport is about to undergo another expansion. Set to begin in the summer of 2025, that's this coming up summer, the Redmond Airport is going to undergo an expansion that will effectively double the size of the airport. That's big. The expansion will add an additional 100,000 square feet, including several new jet bridges. There's going to be retail, concessions, restaurants. It's going to be awesome. Yes, sky bridges. No more standing out in the freezing cold waiting to get on the plane, where you're hopefully going to somewhere warm. Now, this expansion is estimated to cost nearly $200 million. And although it is slated to begin this summer, it will likely be years and years before it's complete. So are you excited? You are, aren't you? You know, with the airport expansion, I guess you could say that Redmond is taking off. Literally. Hey, thanks for sticking with us. We hope you got some value out of this video. And remember, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe, and we will see you over in the next video. Thanks. So what are your favorite pros and cons? Let me know down in the comments.